Welcome to Truth Telling with Elizabeth D'Alto, the podcast dedicated to focusing on the truth that is always evolving within us and around us, where we explore the potentiality of truth as a highly esteemed value at a time in history when most people have more on their plates than any one human should. If you're new to me, full expression is my jam. Some words people have used to describe me range from speaker, trainer, coach, healer, writer, spiritual advisor, teacher, podcaster, and someone even called me their soul Sherpa once. I'm less concerned with titles or labels and more interested in results, change, and creating a world we want to, can, and are proud to live in. A kinder, gentler, more curious, collaborative, reverent world where people respect each other's backgrounds, experiences, and truths. They trust in themselves, in life, and recognize that we need each other. And they know how to cultivate healthy relationships to true power, not the very unhealthy kind of power our current culture is predicated upon. Speaking of our culture, there's a lot of noise and ignorance in our current culture, and this show aims to cut through that by exploring the truths of a diverse range of incredible voices. From authors, artists, creatives, and educators to activists, speakers, and those in various scientific and esoteric fields, our guests hail from cultures and countries all over the world. We post a new interview every Monday, and if you want to keep up with the show notes and quotes from our guests, you can follow me on Instagram at Elizabeth D'Alto. You can expect a wide range of topics when you tune into this show. Everything from health, communication, money, success, parenting, desire, sex, love, and spirituality, to making pivots and transitions in life, and topics related to psychology, storytelling, gender and race issues, emotional intelligence, activism, advocacy, and much more. A few disclaimers. No episode of the show is meant for everyone, and every episode is meant for whoever needs it on the right day at the right time. Not all guest views will reflect my own, and that's intentional. We don't learn, grow, heal, or improve by staying in our comfortable bubbles with all of our people who look, think, or live exactly how we do. If you love what you hear and find it useful and inspiring, the best way to show your appreciation is to share the episode, subscribe to the show, and leave us a rating and review wherever you listen in from. Thank you so much for being here with me. Here we go. Hello, everybody. This is episode number 289 of Truth Telling with Elizabeth D'Alto. I'm super excited to introduce you to today's guest, Miss Molly Mahar. Molly happens to be one of my business besties, if you're familiar with that kind of silly and ridiculous term, but it's the truth. And Molly's big truth in this one was around balancing abundance and allowing herself to desire more or to desire differently than she has in the past. She's also one of the few coaches I'll be having on the show in 2019. And what we talked about here was internal and external space, keeping things practical, specific, and exquisite in personal and professional practices, the difference between being triggered and being intrigued, and what we can learn from boredom. We also discussed one of my biggest pet peeves in the coaching world, the idea that we always need to be pushing or leaning into an edge. Instead, Molly and I explored healthier and more self-honoring relationships to our edges. So enjoy this episode, share it up. It's episode number 289. So links to everything we talked about, including Molly's Reclamation program, can be found at untameyourself.com/289. So that's that. Let's get into the show. Everybody, I'm very excited to have my dear friend Molly Mahar with us today. And Molly, I did an interview before yours today that's going to air like a month after yours. And that was the first time I did this. So this is technically the second time I'm doing it, but I think your episode is going to be the first time it airs.
Okay.
It dawned on me that, so much of my work is about embodiment, and why not be integrating that into the show and into these interviews and just like presence and remind people to get into their bodies. So just a body check-in for you, whatever you feel like sharing, like, how's your body? Like, what's going on? How do you feel?
Well, I'm going to stand up. Let's see if my microphone will come with me. Okay, we're checking in. My body is feeling a little over caffeinated. So that's coming in like a little tightness of breath and a little bit of like neck butterflies.
Yeah.
Like zzz going on. At the time of recording, I am exactly 3 weeks post-op on my breast reduction. So we're still feeling stitches.
Yeah.
And I've had to sleep in a sports bra for 3 weeks.
Wow.
Now I'm a nudie sleeper, so this is a horrible, horrible thing for me.
Right.
And I'm feeling low back tension from sitting because I have been working at my computer all day in the middle of a lunch.
Yeah.
But present here.
Cool.
Oh, and yeah, vitamins are lodged in my throat, but we already talked about that.
Yeah, before we record. Thank you. I'm enjoying these because it's just also cool to see like everyone's like relationship to experience of their body and also how they express what they're feeling in their body. So I'm hoping we'll do this for a little while and we'll see what the feedback is, but it feels valuable. It feels important. So thank you for sharing. And now on to the question that we always start the show with, which is what's a truth that's having a big impact on your life right now?
Ooh, a truth having a big impact on my life right now. You know, here's the one that I'm holding, coming straight off a Q&A call this morning where we talked a lot about it. The balance of abundance, where you are operating from both the assumption and the truth that I have enough, I am enough, I do enough, there is enough. So like holding that and knowing that to be true, and also allowing myself to desire more or differently. And how those are complementary and they don't have to be contradicting.
Yeah. I take notes while I interview you. So if I'm looking down, I'm not like checking my phone. I'm like writing something to come back to later.
It's all good. It's all good, sister.
This is super important. This is something that I feel like I'm always dancing. It's kind of paradoxical.
Totally. And I understand the question. Well, how can those both be true?
Yeah.
Because if you have enough, why do you need more?
Or different. I like that you articulated more or different, because I think our culture often says more is better, but often what's better is not more. It is just different.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the times the biggest changes, the most like soul heaving, oh my God, what am I doing changes have been about less for me, cutting back, saying no, not doing it that way. So the opposite of more, call it sacred smallness, going small, but like sacredly, not because I'm afraid of not going big, quote unquote, because I'm honoring what I need, which looks smaller.
Yeah, several months ago, actually. So this was back in like July when I was moving out of Malibu into Marina Del Rey, and I was downsizing from like a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom townhouse to a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment, and I was overjoyed. I couldn't wait to just like have a cozy little apartment. I had posted something about it on Instagram, and it was cool to hear people's experiences. Where I was coming from was I was coming off of like a year and a half of like really needing a lot of space, and then having cultivated, starting out by needing external space, but then cultivating the internal space so that actually I wanted my external environment to be smaller and cozier and feel like it was like holding me and hugging me. So my home actually, often when people come in, they comment like, oh, it feels like a womb. Like it's like so like feminine and nurturing and nourishing in here. And I'm like, yeah, because that's what I wanted, you know? Whereas some people are like sometimes moving in the opposite. They're like, yeah, no, I need to expand. And what feels expansive is more physical space. And then, of course, every iteration in between. Where are you, if that's a frame of reference, where are you in terms of external and internal space right now?
Ooh, let's see. Where am I? My actual physical space is always small. I like to live in what I think of as jewel boxes. So very small and very like specific / exquisite in my, specific way. Yeah. Some of that is just fucking practical. Like I don't want to have to clean a giant house. Also, I don't like stuff. So I'm not an owner of lots of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's just no need. Like for me, there is no need to have a room that is not used.
Agree.
Or whatever. also the place where I feel like my relationship to space comes into play is nature. And so as long as I have to live somewhere beautiful, like that is very, very important to me always. Something that nurtures that piece of expansiveness and connectedness. I live in a neighborhood now, which is very weird for me. Like, can overhear my neighbors in their backyard. Like, that's not how I've grown up. But I walk 8 houses down and I hit the cliffs and the beach and the ocean. So it takes me 1 minute to feel like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can really relate to that because part of when I lived in Malibu, that expansiveness of nature is what helped me to cultivate the inner expansiveness. I literally felt like I was like taking it in, breathing it in, being held by that expansiveness. So I'm with you. And again, there's so many different ways to cultivate these things. And then what about the internal landscape, the internal spaciousness?
Yeah. Well, this year my theme word was free. So there was lots of cultivation of internal freedom, which I think was actually spacious was one of my ways of being, one of the words I was operating with. So I was craving it big time about a year ago when I crafted those. And the way that it played out was interesting because in the beginning it was lots of time space.
Yeah.
So the internal landscape was I need nothingness. I need downtime. I need rest. Now, I am not someone who is wonderful at that. So I knew that I needed it, but I will admittedly say that those first 6 months where I was like very specifically creating empty space in my calendar, empty space in my work schedule, like half of the time I was like, I don't know what to do. What do I do right now? I'm feeling, I don't know if lonely was the right word, but I wasn't used to having that kind of internal space.
Yeah.
So I had an interesting time adjusting to, okay, you made this empty on purpose. I'm feeling empty, clear. Now, what do I want to like kind of deliberately put back in?
Mm-hmm.
And so that emptiness, which turned into a little bit of like depression, not depression, just like, boredom, maybe boredom is a better word.
Mm-hmm.
I got to kind of recreate that deliberate, chosen space with little items like conscious consumption of podcasts, with I'd like to spend more time with my girlfriends, which gives me the internal feeling of connectedness. I got in the habit of meditating. Yay, mm-hmm. Connectedness with myself. So it was almost like internal space on purpose, real severe, and then just being intentional about what was refilling that until I got to a place that felt balanced for me.
So I appreciate your answers, and I need to like pause to do an acknowledgement for a minute, which is that, you know, ever since I have been really studying and gaining much, much, much deeper understanding of privilege, I cannot let it go when a conversation is like coming from like a base level of privilege that I know perhaps even a majority of our listenership wouldn't have. Right. Mm-hmm. So for people listening who are like, must be nice to like just take some friggin' space. Yes. And I understand that some people listening might not have access to that. Now, I'm going to make a suggestion, and I don't know if it is relevant. So if you're listening to this and it is relevant and useful to you, ping me and let me know. And if it's not, also ping me and let me know. So I'm not assuming this is going to work for people, but I would hope that space and taking space could be relative. So if you have a very full life and maybe like you have to work and you're not an entrepreneur and it's not super flexible, or you work at a job, or you have a big family to care for, or whatever are your obligations, even if it's, so like Molly was able to take a lot of space for herself because her kids are at an age now where they go to school. So she has time during the day that she used to have. Like, you know, she has help and, you know, whatever and all these things. And she has a business that gives her some freedom and flexibility. If you don't have that, what could taking space look like for you? Maybe it's not as much. Maybe it's just like 5 minutes in the morning. I'm not sure. And so rather than not be able to relate or connect to this conversation at all, I am curious if there is something that you can take and make your own from it. So now that I've done my little like privilege pause so we don't ostracize people or be tone deaf, I can come back to you, Molly.
Come back to me. I mean, I am well aware that I stand on a place of privilege. I'm a cisgender, able-bodied white woman who is rich. I mean, I make my own money, right? Like, that's done. I will. Right. That is me. I will say, to create that space, I had to, rearrange my personal resources. I dropped half of my income because I got rid of an entire program because I needed space. Now, yes, I'm still privileged and fine and totally okay, but that wasn't an easy choice.
Yeah, yeah. And so this also reminds me of, and I saw it on a meme, but it's a really valid quote, which is that, when we talk about privilege, we're not saying it means you're going to have an easy life. We're just saying that like the color of your skin or some certain other things won't be the reason why your life is challenging. So again, we're not invalidating your experience. We're also not making the assumption that everyone who's listening is going to be able to relate to it, which feels important. So talk about making that decision, because I also did that this year. I also went, I'm going to sacrifice literally around, and I think it was similar for you, around $100,000 in revenue, which different from income, right? Net and gross are two different things.
Yeah.
And I made that choice, and I knew things would get a little bit tighter for me at some point. And I was totally willing to do it also like you, because I needed some space. What made you say yes to that? I know a lot of people would be like, hell no, and like push themselves and force themselves to do the thing for the income. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I gave up $170K in revenue, which is fine. It's totally, totally fine. Because, well, here's the thing. I had made the opposite choice about a year ago. I knew that I was feeling overwhelmed, that there was too much crammed into my life, and that it wasn't allowing me to be the woman that I wanted to be. However, when I sat down with it and crunched the numbers and talked to my husband, it didn't seem the time to let go of that. Mm-hmm. And so I made the choice that I was just going to suck it up. And luckily, I loved the program that I gave up. I wasn't against the program. I was just needing to clear some time, space, and energy for other things. Yeah. But I made the opposite choice. I launched it. I accepted people. I took their deposits. And maybe a week into that, I woke up just feeling, talk about being into my body, sick to my stomach, nauseous, which is how a lot of my no feelings will come up for me. I will feel them in my gut. I mean, I think I was to the point where I was vomiting, like that bad.
Wow.
And I just sat with it. I was like, oh, can I swear, by the way?
I prefer not F-bombs, but everything else is great. Thank you. Since you asked.
Is what I said to myself. I think I made the wrong choice here. And I can't ignore what's now coming up. And honestly, I think it was after the first people put their deposits in when it all of a sudden wasn't about me. It was about these real life women giving me their hard-earned money to something that I wasn't sure I wanted to do.
Yes.
But, that feels wrong. So I backtracked. I called them, obviously, and explained what was going on. I called every single person on the phone who had applied, some of them who I hadn't even talked to yet, and apologized and said, I'm not running this program. Thank you so much for responding and applying, and I see you and we can talk, but this is what's true for me, and I'm pulling it.
I didn't know that you had taken deposits. I thought you had just decided going into the year. So I've done things like this over the years too. What was the response?
Disappointment, but also, and this is why it's like kind of safe to do this in our specific world. They're like, hey, I appreciate you walking your walk, talking your talk. Mm-hmm. Like you tell us to trust our intuition, to make hard choices, unattached to how that's going to land for someone else, like, follow your truth kind of thing. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it was both, I'm sad and thanks for showing me what it looks like to do this in integrity. Bad timing, but integrity.
Yeah.
So I regret the choice. I wish I could have come to it about a week before.
Yeah. That is integrity in action, which, we talk about integrity a lot on the show. And I really appreciate that you were like, people gave me their hard-earned money. And even just like the acknowledgement, like some people are stretching themselves to invest in the things that we do. So if we're not fully in it, that's not a great energetic to be inviting people into.
Yeah. Yeah. And when it was just me, when I was like, oh, well, I need to do this. It didn't seem real, but yeah, I think when that money hit my bank account, I was like, ooh, this is a no.
Yeah. Yeah. So your core program that you do run is called
the one that survived.
The one that survived the cut is called Reclamation. And, I've been using the word reclamation to describe a lot of what we do for years. I love it. I believe in that. And I want to know, you've been doing this for years now. How many years have you been running Reclamation?
Let's see, the time that it'll be, this is the third year coming up. What I've been teaching, I've been doing for 7 years, but in this format, in the Reclamation format, 3 years.
And so how did you arrive at the format? And you can just describe it so people can understand what the format is. But I love to know how people come up with their curriculums and their containers and why. Totally.
This is actually very interesting. So the container piece of it is it's 10 months and there's a different topic each month. And the entire point is to reclaim, or for some people, they're truly saying discover for the first time your truth on these topics. So it's authenticity, expectations, body love, pleasure, ritual, creativity, courage, purpose, power, and abundance. Yes. Okay. Those are 10. And it came from the mastermind, which is the program that got left behind. I had a personal kind of life mastermind that I ran for 5 years, and with 14 women and 3 retreats and very intimate one-on-one work on all sorts of things. And the first year it ever happened, I knew I was going to be doing one-on-one coaching with them, but there was also going to be kind of group pieces that we were concentrating on. The first year, I think we said, okay, we'll work on something for 2 months, and I divvied them into groups. And I said, you tell me what you want to work on, and then I will do the best that I can to bring you topics and books and prompts, and I'll teach a call on it. But I let them decide what we talked about. Mm-hmm. I was like, it was because I wanted to do what was useful, like what's coming up for you. And they had little groups, so they got to plan, they got to take some ownership. Did the same thing year 2. I was like, all right, that worked really well. Great. You all decide what you want to do. Mm. Year 3, I said, okay, I know what you want to talk about by now, because basically years 1 and 2 were the same. Like, they came up with, on their own, we wanted to talk about relationships and sex. We wanted to talk about money. We wanted to talk about wellness. Like, this is what they were calling them. Mm-hmm. So year 3, I said, okay, I know what you want to talk about. So I gave them the topics and let them kind of take some ownership of choosing the order. By year 4, I was like, all right.
I got it.
I'm going to reorganize these. I'm going to rename them. I've learned so much from the first 3 years. I want to make them flow into each other, because I think there's a learning curve that we weren't in advance of. So year 4, I still didn't even record. I was doing them live, the teaching calls, every single year. And so year 5 was the year that I recorded the live teaching calls and Elevate and used them for the content for Reclamation.
Cool.
If that makes sense. So it was, so 5 years of like having month-long conversations about these topics.
Yeah.
And what was left to kind of dig into, and what points of view we needed to explore, which came the guest calls, mm-hmm. You obviously doing power. So it's like a 5-year live back and forth before it got turned into the online version.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and this is, for people, the show is not geared for entrepreneurs, and I know not everyone listening is an entrepreneur, but for those of you who are, this is why it's important to have people in your life who are like on your path, right? So Molly is one of my I know some people call this like business bestie, but like we really have had a similar path. Like even this year, at the point at which this interview is going live, my power circle, the year-long women's circle, is live. And that came after running the Wild Sun Movement virtual program for 4 years and going, well, technically 5 if you count the beta in 2013, and going, okay, what works, what doesn't work, and tweaking and honing. But also really prioritizing, like, I love what you said about, leveraging a learning curve that we really weren't doing before that we could. Because it's not just about, like, what do I want to do? That matters. But it's also about what's getting people the best results. What are the gaps? What am I noticing every year where people are getting stuck? Where are people not continuing? And how do I, like, as a facilitator, as a space holder, as a teacher, whatever the hell we call ourselves, how do I do something better about that? And it literally just takes the live experience, the R&D.
Yeah. I mean, not to bust anyone's chops, but I do not believe in teaching a program in an online format before you have taught it in person.
Yeah.
It's because there is so much you learn from what people actually need versus what you thought they needed.
100%. Like, I think of that with my book, right? Which is now, so it's January 2019. So we're coming up on 3.5 years since I launched my book. And at the time, you always think you put something out and you're like, oh yeah, this is the part that I love the most. And so maybe that'll be the part, that'll be most useful. And it just totally wasn't. Like, the part that blew people's minds was the Courageous Conversation Framework.
I was going to say, all I remember is the Courageous Conversation Framework.
I should have written the damn book about courageous conversations, because it's funny, because it was like chapter 12 out of like 13 chapters. And so it was like right there at the end, this like nugget that I didn't know was going to be the most valuable thing. So that's, and this is why it's important to listen to people, to listen and like engage with your people and like see what's actually working. And this is even why you're here. This is my year. Before we hit record, Molly was like, I'm so glad I made it before the cutoff of you no longer interviewing coaches. Right? I had done a post about this a while ago. Like, I'm not really, except for a couple people that were pre-planned and a couple return guests that I wanted to have back anyway. Like, I'm kind of getting away from having coaches on the show this year in 2019, and honestly, probably forever after this. But, the reason why Molly makes the cut is because she is a person I trust, and she's a person I know that if any of you want to even go check out her program right now, which is still open for enrollment, I'm happy sending you there. I know that you will be in good hands, and I will not be like leading you into harm's way.
I mean, I do swear a lot, and I have zero boundaries about what I talk about. So that's not your thing. Although you're an Elizabeth fan, so it's probably your thing.
It's probably your thing. So I want to come back into reclamation. Something I'm curious about for you. So there's 10 topics, and it's like the teach what you need to learn factor. Do you notice each month as you go into the thing that something in your personal life comes up too around the topic? Has that stopped happening because you've been doing it for so long?
Well, it's interesting. Okay, that is a really great question. Because people are like, aren't you bored? And I'm like, no, I talk about 10 totally different things. I'm not bored at all. But it is interesting every year to see which ones are most triggering or which ones I have the most work to do.
Yeah.
Or here's what I pay attention to now. I'm like, which ones do I feel like I need to redo? It actually happened to me in Power Month this year. I'm like, oh, fuck, I got to redo.
It's okay.
I got to redo Power Month. I have so many new thoughts about power now because we are in like intimate discussion about it. So I'm presenting, I always say, this is my truth, but you all know the whole point is to find your truth. So here's all the fodder. Here's all here's all those life stories. Here's the experts. Here's the book, Now you dig out what's important to you. And sometimes they come up with these incredible things that open up new pieces of my exploration of I was like, oh, dude, I got to think about that.
Yeah.
So, I think that I get just as much out of it, at least in a couple of months that are really present. So power was one for me this year. Courage felt really big for me this year. I think I was feeling a little bit bored. And so I was so inspired by we do these courage challenges by what was going on. This is where the sensual selfie week happened on my Instagram.
Of course.
I was like, oh yeah, naked pictures of myself on the internet. I'm down for that.
Yeah, actually, I want to have Evian back on. For those of you listening, Evian Whitney was in our first 25 episodes. And so the sensual selfie challenge that Molly is referring to is something that Evian does online. And it's so beautiful. It's so stunning. That week that was happening, I was doing something. I wanted to participate, but I couldn't. But it was really a beautiful thing to watch. Actually, if anyone listening wants to check it out, if you go on Instagram and you search the hashtag sensual selfie challenge, some of the most beautiful, amazing, intimate, vulnerable things you've ever seen in your life will come up when you search that hashtag. So highly encourage it.
It was way good. It was like an echo back to Pleasure Month for me. Evian's one of our pleasure teachers. Mm-hmm. And then having it come up during Courage, I saw it. I saw her post about it, actually. And I was like, ooh, triggered and intrigued at the same time. I need to investigate, right?
That's probably a good cocktail most of the time.
I was like, And then I just didn't let myself think too much about it. Again, I was kind of feeling bored, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'd already chopped my hair off. I think I'd done all these other little not ridiculous, things that needed to be done that felt appropriate during Courage Month. But I was like, ooh, this one really feels like it's taking me to an extra edge. Mm-hmm. I was good. Like, I like being there, and I hadn't found something that was doing it for me. So I literally saw her post. I'm in my office, my nanny's watching my kids, or maybe they were napping, but I work from home and I have support because I have a 4 and a 6-year-old. So I'm in my office. I whip off my shirt, grab my cell phone. I'm like, I'm just going to do this right now before I lose the energy. So the very first one, I'm like lying on my meditation cushion with my shirt off. I'm like, please, hopefully no one sees me from the backyard.
Oh my, this is the kind of shit where I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we here? This is, at the same time, this is so great.
I mean, true life story.
What a life.
It only got better. I know, it only got better from there, but.
And so I'm curious for your experience. So I remember, this was many years ago. Actually, this is one of the things that sparked the creation of Wild Soul Movement, was a picture that I had actually taken in 2011 that I didn't have the courage to share till 2013. Part of it didn't even have to do with like the exposure aspect of it. It had to do with dealing with my mom's reaction to it. So I'm curious for you, your experience, what were all the factors that if you had stopped to think about it might have prevented you from sharing?
Well, my parents already think I'm crazy, so like in a good way. Like they kind of like my crazy, and they kind of just shake their heads at me and like, okay. I mean, the whole realm in which I work for many years, my dad was like, I don't understand. You didn't go to school for this. Do people understand that? At one point, I have a joy tattoo on my arm, and I was at a conference back in the days when I went to conferences, and I had a bunch of temporary joy tattoos that I handed out at a Stratejoy meetup, right? And my father like calls me and he's like, Molly, this has gone too far. Why did all of those people get your tattoo? I mean, he's definitely the one who drops the cult button on me. I'm like, Dad, it's not a cult. Those are fake.
But if they weren't, it would have been maybe around, I don't know. But listen, a couple years ago, when I still had my free Facebook group, 2 women, they posted their pictures. They got tattoos that said Wild Soul.
Yeah, I've seen some tattoos that are attributed to me, which I love, so I'll take it. I think it's great. I'm not forcing them to put something on their body.
I've never asked anyone to do that. That's the thing. And that's why it's not a cult. We actually didn't know until after it happened.
Yeah, I didn't know until they shared them with me. Same. So that piece, that was not an issue. I didn't tell my husband until the weekend when I had to explain what I was doing out of the backyard on a chair with naked in the jungle because I needed the goddess one. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, just don't let the kids come in the backyard for a while.
So wait, he didn't see your Instagram posts?
I don't think he follows me on Instagram. I don't think he's on Instagram. I mean, and then I told him what I was doing. He was like, oh. And then he looked at it and he was like, you look hot. I'm like, thanks.
It's nice. I love that you didn't, and this is a cool thing too. I love that you don't have a dynamic in your relationship where you felt like you needed to like check or ask permission.
Get permission? No. We definitely do not have that dynamic in our relationship. But because I knew I was doing it for myself, I just didn't ask anyone. I feel like if I would have said, hey, do you guys think this is a good idea to whomever?
Yeah.
Somebody would have talked me out of it.
Well, and that's what I did back in the day with my mom. Yeah. I wasn't asking her if she thought it was a good idea. I was actually going, hey, I just wanted to give you a heads up because I felt like preempting the reaction I knew she was going to have. But then at the time, I let the reaction she had, I mean, this is 2011. It was 8 years ago, almost 9 now. Damn. Whoa. Mind-blowing. Pause. Time is so weird. That just like short-circuited my brain for a second. I'm sorry, 7 years. I'm doing bad math, but either way. But I let her reaction deter me. And that's where I was at the time. Quick break in the show, everyone, to introduce you to a new sponsor we have. The name of the company is Prove It. That's Pruvit. And they are a company that produces an extremely high quality, therapeutic grade ketone supplement. If you are familiar with the benefits of a ketogenic lifestyle, what the process of ketosis is in the body, or supplementing with ketones, you already know what it is. If you don't, you can find information by going to www.elizabethdialto.experienceketo.com. So that's elizabethdialto.experienceketo, which is keto.com. Now, I want to give a couple of disclaimers here. I was introduced to this very synchronistically and serendipitously by a dear friend of mine who lives in the UK. She was visiting Los Angeles back in December. I didn't even know we were going to be having this conversation. And she just started telling me about this company that she was working with, this supplement that she was taking, and all the benefits for her in her own body with her own health. One of which was clearing up some brain fog. I have been dealing with some inflammation and some digestive issues and just some like very minor health things all related to inflammation over the course of the last few years, and really trying to treat myself naturally without taking any medications or having to do any major Western medicine protocols. And as well, going back and forth with my diet and food and how I want to eat, whether I want to be eating more meat products or less meat products and things like that. And so I got some samples of this, and I've just really enjoyed the energy, the impacts it's having on my body. It's definitely helping with the inflammation. The other disclaimer I want to give is if you go over to check that out, yes, I do get credit if you make any orders or if you want to join as a promoter. It is a multi-level marketing company. I'm not all in on the whole multi-level marketing thing, but that's just the way it's set up, and I use the products and I wanted to share and talk about the products. The other thing is some of their messaging is around weight loss and fat loss, so I need to be really clear and state that that is not my messaging. You all know I could give a shit about losing weight. I'm not into that fat phobic kind of messaging, but I really am into the convenience and the benefits of getting the body in a state of ketosis, which has myriad health benefits. If you're curious about it, look that up, Google that, ketosis. It's really useful for all kinds of disorders, diseases, and stuff like that. Obviously, if you have some serious medical things going on, you might want to check with a medical professional first. But so far, I'm really appreciating the company, the products. I'm getting some great results in my own experience. So just wanted to share that up with you all. And again, take it with a grain of salt. Try it out for yourself if you're interested. And if you're not, totally cool. So that's that. Again, it is elizabethdialto.experienceketo, which is keto.com if you're interested. And back to the show. So, okay, I need to do another thing. I know I'm finding myself feeling apologetic about this, but I'm really not. You use the word crazy, and that's fine. I'm not judging you. I am just actively working words like that could even be mildly offensive to people with mental illnesses out of my vernacular. So I'm just calling it out. And at the time of recording this, literally someone called me out for using OCD in a podcast just last week. So I'm working on it, and I'm committed to like calling it out. So I'm not necessarily calling you out, but I am presencing that I heard it and that I'm not using those words anymore. So
isn't it called calling in anyway?
Yeah, exactly. So
it's all fine. It's all good. Thank you.
We're doing. And yes, okay. So moving along. What else? Well, so moving into the year this year, personally, even related to your topics or not, what do you feel like you're reclaiming in 2019?
You know, I think what's coming up for me, which is going to be interesting because I haven't had one for a while, is a year of what I call mastery. Right? I have this little cycle of years that we always do in Holiday Council, which is like oh no, I'm going to get it wrong if I try to do it off the top of my head, even though I teach this all the freaking time. It's unrest, destruction, growth, mastery. Just for like a very basic model of how your years might be going, might be different segments of your year. But like, I have been in hardcore growth years, 2017 and 2018, in pretty much every aspect of my business. There was, my kids came from like babies to kind of small children, toddlers, small children, this giant evolution in my marriage in a good way, luckily a positive evolution, but streamlining of strategy. Like it has just felt like everything's a little hard and everything's a little scary and I'm just kind of holding on, right? Growing and learning and sticking with it, but growth after growth after growth. And at least in my framework, the next year is mastery. And historically, I am not comfortable staying in mastery. I will quickly flip myself into unrest. I will find something to either be not satisfied with, or I will like the hedonic treadmill. I'll quickly grow my dreams bigger so I am going to try really hard to enjoy and be present and celebrate, hopefully, a good year of mastery. I'm saying like I can just be. I can just be appreciative. I can treasure. I can cherish. I don't know. I don't honestly know what's going to come.
Right.
But I'm going to be conscious of not throwing myself into unrest just because I'm scared of being bored in mastery.
I love this because I feel like I've had these cycles as well. I specifically remember actually in 2012, I had been working with not 2013, I'd been working with a specific healer/coach for over a year. And I remember it was time to like either re-up or not. And I remember being like, nah, I'm just going to enjoy being the person I've been busting my ass to be for over a year. Instead of just being like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And just cultivate and really deepen and integrate all the work I had just done.
Yeah. Again, historically, I am not good at being there.
What do you think that is? Why not?
I think part of me, or at least the old story from when I was younger, would be like, I am so better being busy than bored. And I think it is a piece of my emotional wellness that every episode of major depression I've ever had has come off of being bored.
Oh, this is interesting. All right, I'm not here to coach you, Molly, but
it's all good.
I have a hunch. Can I share it with you?
Yes, share away.
It might be totally off, but I'm so curious about what you associate with bored. I wonder, is it bored or is it just like satisfied, calm, not seeking, searching? Like what's actually boredom for you?
Yeah. Let's see. What is actual boredom? Well, now that came out of my mouth, I'm not sure if the depression spurred the boredom or the boredom spurred the depression, but in my mind, they are linked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bored is not having, let's see. Bored feels like not having a worthwhile pursuit. So even the word pursuit, very masculine. A worthwhile use of my gifts, of my talents, which is why the rest, like I have to specifically slow down.
Right. Like even be
structure for silence.
Even be using your gifts and your talents, right? Like there's like you use the term masculine, like that just feels like associated with doing, right? Rather than being. And like the mastery is much more of like a being place.
Yes.
Oh, this is juicy.
Yeah, so for the last 2 years, since pleasure was my theme of the year in 2016, I have really been, obviously the growth's been going on, but I've been playing and learning and trying to sit in this feminine or lunar, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, whatever.
We have giant discussions about our gendered power terms in my power month.
Yeah.
But okay, regardless, the idea of being instead of doing has been for 2 years, something I've been playing with. Part of it was unlocking everything below my neck. So the embodiment piece was new to me, I would say, in the last 2 years, for sure. Basically, pleasure year kicked it all off for me. So I'm not quite as scared about mastery because I feel like my level of knowledge about what's going on and what the patterns were and how it used to be versus what I know is possible for me now is very, very different.
Yeah.
but there is still a little hesitation of like, ooh, will I be able to do it this time?
Yeah.
Or be it this time, I guess, not even do it.
So this is so interesting. This isn't necessarily, so I find bored to be such an interesting, I'm fascinated by it because I'm never bored. I'm literally never bored. It's not really, I think ever since I was a kid, I don't know. Occasionally, some people bore me. I find some people very boring. But it's just not really a thing for me. And so whatever people are bored, I'm always so interesting about it. And, you know, I've heard, and this feels kind of judgmental to me. I'm not putting this on you. But I've heard some people say, like, if you're bored, you're just being lazy. Because there's, like, so much to, like, do and experience and enjoy about life. But so, I mean, I don't necessarily have a question here. I find boredom to be a fascinating thing because I'm so unfamiliar with it.
Well, so I think partly bored for me is pointing to this thing that is not joyful and is not sad. Like I'm a high, low, low. Like I go high, and I go low, low. And I love that about myself. I do not mind my emotional zoop, 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 zoop. I'm making a back and forth motion with my hands. That is interesting to me. That's me being me. So when I feel bored, I feel flat. I feel like not engaged.
Yeah.
Right. Which is where the episodes of feeling the worst in my life have come from, because then that causes me to hide or to isolate or to turn really myopic and forget that there's a world out there. Out there, and I can only see my shit stuff right in front of me.
Yeah.
So rest and solitude are both things that I do enjoy that are not boredom for me. But I do have to create structure so that they don't roll into this boredom or this place where I'm consuming crap. Not food. Well, I guess it could be food crap, but reading crap, scrolling crap,
Netflixing crap,
exactly, which is not a thing that I typically do. So when I do, it's a signal like, you're bored, Molly. Like, where are you not engaged? What are you not lit up by in your life?
Yeah.
Like, you need to be creating, not to consume. You're a creator, not a consumer. And I know this about myself. So when I get in that hole, I'm like, oh, something's off.
And that, I appreciate you saying, I know this about myself, right? So like Molly's experience and everything she just shared, some people might be like, oh yeah, that I can relate to that. And some of you might be like, that's not me.
Yeah, no.
You know?
Yeah.
So I always like to remind people, like, if you can relate to what we're saying, great. And if you can't, there's nothing wrong with you. Our way is not the only way or the right way. So.
Oh, no. I am claiming no rightness. I am understanding myself and my cycles of energy. I will not tell you to be a high, low, low, or push, and then isolate. It just is.
So this feels kind of related. I wrote this when you were talking earlier, because I've noticed mine has changed over the last few years. What's your relationship to edges? How do you determine for yourself? This is kind of in vain, like a piggyback off of what we were just talking about. When is it time to push an edge, and when is it time to be like, I'm good here, with a comfortable difference from the edge?
Oh, let me think.
And again, just for you, we know you can only speak to your own experience.
Yes. My specific slice of life. When do I know? I think the board is a good clue for me.
Yeah.
When I need to like spice it up. And it's so interesting to see what the edges are. I use jealousy as a really good way to identify what an edge might be. So maybe there's a better. I'm not sure what. Yes, but the ways that I can tell. I wrote this thing on Instagram. It's not funny. That's even part of our lexicon. I wrote this thing on Insta.
I was just thinking. I was literally thinking the same thing. It's so normal. Just be like. But literally in the last conversation I was having, I was talking about how like social media is integrated into our lives now, the same way electricity once became, the phone, cell phones, like devices, tablets, like it's just integrated now.
That just sounded weird coming out of my mouth.
Yeah, it's so normal now.
I was writing this thing. Well, actually, I was taking a picture of what I wrote in my journal. Journaling is how I process like my interior world a lot of the time.
Yep.
And whatever. I was whining. This is what I like to do in my journal sometimes. La 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 la. Get to see what's underneath it. And I ended up writing this list of things I wanted to learn. And one of the things I wrote is like, I want to learn how to dress, like physically, like dress my body how I feel on the inside. Because I feel like I don't know how to do that. And then several different people pointed me to the same woman who must apparently teach this. And I like used her words. And so then I was following her on Instagram and I'm like, oh, I am jealous of her and her cute little outfits and how she thinks about, she calls it inside out congruency. I don't know her name. It's like Stasia. I don't know how to pronounce it. She lives in Maine. She's all outdoorsy. Like I totally love her. And I was like, ooh, I'm jealous. And I was like, pay attention. Like in a good way. Like I admire her. Yeah. So there's going to be some sort of goal that I set around, and I might even take her little course about how do I do that?
Yeah.
And I don't care anything about what I wear. I mean, I do. Obviously, I do. I was triggered. I was jealous.
Yeah.
So I'm just paying attention to that edge. I'm like, ooh, I guess I'm interested in what I wear.
I can super relate to that. I've been feeling for a while like I need to revamp my wardrobe, and I haven't because I'm not. One of the ways that I'm a responsible steward with my money is I don't spend money on things that I'm not all in on. And while I'm unsure, I'm not just going to go buying stuff that I might hate next week. But I feel you on that. And I also really appreciate, I use jealousy as a marker too, to just show me like where I want to go. Like me next. Like that's my response to if or when, which is very rare for me. I don't typically feel jealous. But if I do catch myself, I'm like, ooh, me next. Like what part of me is wanting to express that thing that's giving me these feelings?
Totally. Yeah. I didn't receive it as a bad thing. It was like, ooh, apparently that's what I want to work. Like,
yeah,
apparently that's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
Which it hasn't been for really, I don't even know if ever. So
me either.
So that's going to be an edge. And then me having to admit it because I'm literally someone who says like, I don't like to shop. I don't care.
Same.
So then I'm going to have to be like, well, I guess if I'm going to have to learn how to dress, I'm going to have to shop, right? That's part of it. And so then I'm going to have to revamp the story that I'm not someone who goes shopping. So like that's the edge piece of here's a piece of my identity that I have claimed and that I have spoken, and it's going to change. I think I have a feeling that this is where this is going.
So just like at some point next year, I want to go shopping with you after you start.
I don't even know how to shop.
I don't either. Yeah, I'm always mystified by people who are like, "Let's go shopping." I'm like, "For what?" Right? Because like if I go shopping, it's because I have a list and I know exactly what I need, and I'm going to go in, get the thing that I need, and get the hell out of there. And if I go in and I can't find what I need and I strike out enough times, I'm done because I have like, there's a window. Like I only have like a certain amount of energy for it. And then I'm like, screw it. I'll do it again later because I can't.
I know. I seriously like don't know how to do it.
Right.
And like I was a good student. Like I knew how to do school. Like some people just like are super smart. They just don't know how to do school. Like I got school. Like the shopping thing. Like I'm scared of going to boutiques. I don't want to look at things because I don't want someone to like ask me if I need help because I don't know.
I'm like, yes, I need so much help. How much time do you have?
Yeah. Or I'll go the opposite way. I'm like, can you give me all afternoon? Can I just go in there and just bring me things? That would be great. Yes, that would be very helpful.
Yeah. I've let
my
people
mom
do
does that for me sometimes.
It's always so interesting because part of what I'm hearing in this desire is to express the insides on the outsides, to have the match, right? And I think you used, what was the word you used in her thing? Something congruency?
Congruency. Inside out congruency.
Inside out, yeah, that's amazing. Because you'll have people being like, oh my God, that looks so good on your body. And I'm like, cool, but I hate it. I feel like
a really random example of an edge and how I identified it and what I will do with it.
But again, like that's what we want. Like just like kind of giving people these processes that, maybe it'll work for you, maybe it won't. Maybe you're going to get a message from someone that's like, hi, I can totally take you shopping. And I will share something. This is cool. So I don't remember I feel like you and I might have talked about this when we were in Santa Barbara recently, that years ago, stylist, Elsa Isaac, I don't know if you know Elsa, had told me, actually she had a quiz on her website, I don't know if it's still there, to figure out like what type are you, and the types were like, celebrities, so we could all relate, like Beyonce, are you a Beyonce, are you a J-Lo, are you a whatever, are you whatever, I don't remember all the rest. But the thing she was like, all celebrities have stylists. So if you're able to figure out who has your body type, you can just Google them, look at what they're wearing, and know that like a stylist has helped them figure out what works for them, you know? So, you know, for me, I'm kind of like a cross between like a J-Lo and a Salma Hayek, because Salma Hayek has the huge rack, right? But J-Lo's physique is a little more athletic and muscular. But that was helpful to me, because then I looked up, like, what do these people wear? And I was like, oh, like, that's how you wear a belt on a body like this. I had no idea. Like, I don't know if left to my own devices. So I just thought that was a cool way to not have to invest all kinds of time, effort, and energy, but to look and go, oh. So even actually last year during The Voice, I was like, oh, I actually really love Jennifer Hudson's style. And we do kind of have, she's, I think, quite a bit taller than me, but like similar body type. And I was like, all right, I can get down with some of J. Hud style. This might work for me.
I love it. Okay, now I'm going to design a celebrity. Yeah, no, I seriously think I'm going to take a class. I think I love to learn. I'm a great student. This is the perfect way for me to do it.
Super fun. So what else, as we start to wrap up here, what, is there anything I haven't asked you about of and or related to who you are, what's up for you right now, or reclamation that you really want to share?
Well, maybe. Here's what I want to be prompted about, because this is the name of your podcast, truth telling.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you can tell what's your version of truth telling, and then I'll like, because it's something I operate with. That's like the base of reclamation of how do we practice, one, telling the truth to ourselves.
Yes.
And then telling the truth outside of ourselves to the situation of our life. Like, I don't see a lot of, well, I mean, it depends. In general, people are not coming to work with me to make giant outside changes in their lives. I mean, sometimes that ends up happening, but it's not like I want to start a business. I want to divorce my partner. I want it's, I don't know what's off. I just don't quite fit in the world I've created anymore, or I'm finding resentment, or I'm finding like there's these big gaps of what I know to be possible and what's actually showing up for me. And truth telling is where we start.
Yeah. This is interesting. So I'm like the opposite. I'm like, people come to me, not so much in my programs, but in my private work, when they're ready to like shit or get off the pot, where they're like super clear that there's either like a goal or a dream or a something that they've just been not going after, and not going after it has actually started to become painful and is having impacts on their life. Or there's an issue that has just been so chronic over the course of their life, and they've thrown like everything at it, and somehow it is still not resolved. Like, that's my wheelhouse. So I love that you're kind of like help the people identify what's the thing.
Yeah, I feel like a lot, not everyone, but for the majority, it's like life is quote unquote fine, good.
Yeah.
But I don't feel the ownership piece. Like, I created this life. I wanted this life. This is what I said. This is how I said it was going to go down. And then you get it. You're like,
not fulfilling.
Yeah. So sometimes there'll be big change that pulls out of the end of the experience of this truth telling. But a lot of time, and I tell them to expect this, a lot of the time it's your experience of your life changes. Your life, the setup, your kids, your partner, your jobs, where you live. A lot of the times, none of that changes, but the experience of your life changes dramatically.
That's a really cool way of putting it. Yeah. So for me, I mean, you asked me the question.
Yeah.
For me, my kind of truth telling, it's usually like deeply uncomfortable, because we're lineage breakers. That's my work. We're here to break the lineage. Like, one of the cards in my Oracle deck, I think it's number 16 or 17, is called Break the Lineage. And I cannot tell you how many women who have bought my Oracle deck who have said it was the first card they pulled. And I was like, that makes sense, because that's what being a wild soul and connecting to your wild soul is about. It's about going, what is my truth? And the thing that I say even in the intro of this podcast is the truth that's always evolving within us and around us, because truth is fluid. What's true for me right now today as we're having this conversation might not be true even next week. Or it might just be refined. And so we leave ourselves the space in the room to always be in a conversation, to stay curious, to refine, to correct course, like we were saying earlier, to go, I used to do this thing I didn't have awareness around. Now that I do, I can't.
Yep.
Or this wasn't important to me before. Like you.
Yeah.
I don't care about how I don't shop. Guess what? This is my edge. I'm curious now. You know what I mean? So constantly reserving the right to change our minds, being honest about it, but it's a kind of honesty. Oh, my friend Jade said this many years ago, and I've repeated it on the podcast. So for some people, this will be like a broken record. But honesty without compassion is cruelty. Right? We're not just we're not here to like punch people in the face with the truth. The kindness, the love, and compassion to me is vital because we want truth to be received and felt and useful and healing and expansive, not just like an FU.
Yeah.
Which, listen, sometimes it needs to come out as an FU because you've held it back for so long. It's like, if this doesn't come out, I just might explode, and comes out sideways, and that's also fine.
Yeah. I feel like the truth telling that I get to witness a lot is that first piece of admitting it to yourself about this isn't working, or this way that we negotiated our relationship isn't working for me anymore, or that this was my one goal and that was it. It's not enough, and that's okay. So a lot of like first knowing it for yourself. And then it's funny, this is where the courageous conversations, like we literally talk about that framework, because most of that, we're not operating by ourselves. You can't just declare your new truth and everything's roses.
This
it's
is
like, okay,
so important. Such an important part.
Now I need to retrain my boss how to treat me. Now I need to reset boundaries with my children. And now I need to renegotiate what my sexual relationship looks like with my partner. Now, like, and be willing to do the work, because that is not easy. That is not linear. That is not, I'm going to ask for what I want and then I'm going to get it. Nope.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes maybe magically, but so it's like that messy part of saying, I'm clear. Like, now I'm clear. And now how do I do the hard stuff? And how do I have the backup to do the hard stuff?
I'm so glad you're saying this, and it's such a great note to end on, is like, what's the responsibility of truth telling? Right? Because our truth can and will impact people around us. And actually, this is the perfect week for it, because I wrote a post the other day about, a person who's been on the show, a person whose work was super pivotal in the beginning of my journey many years ago, had been on the podcast. I had to delete her interview this week because it became glaringly clear that she does not care about the harm and the hurt that she's causing to people, even in her own audience. People have asked her repeatedly not to do and say certain things, and she just deletes it and erases it and like doesn't apologize or whatever. Or if there's an apology, it's a self-centered apology. And I cannot have people on this platform who others could go to and potentially be hurt, harmed, gaslit, erased, whatever. Yeah. And so that's like, what's the responsibility of truth? Okay, so it might be that person's truth that they have things going on or whatever, they feel a certain way, but it's hurting people, it's impacting people. So that's I don't know if that's paradoxical, but that makes it sticky. There's a responsibility to it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can have a whole other conversation about the others. And, well, just because this is my truth, what does that mean for, again, a lot of the times I'm running into it, intimate relationships with my partner, with my boss, with my children.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and I say, hey, if you gave yourself the grace to know and own your own truth, you have to give that to the other person.
Yes.
Like, this is going to get messy now because we're going to have to renegotiate a lot of boundaries. But you are not allowed to say my truth is the right way in the road that we have to take. Mm-hmm. If you're going to give that to yourself, you have to give it to the other person, and that's not easy. But it is life, and it is possible. So there's the deepening and the richening. Oh yes, that's what telling the truth. Oh, there we go, juicy stuff.
And this is why, we made an exception in the No More Coaches for Molly Mahar.
Thank you.
She goes there and it's real shit. So, all right. Thanks, Boo. MollyMahar.com or Stratajoy.com or both?
Stratajoy. Molly Mahar is a filmmaker in LA.
Oh, well, good to know. So Stratajoy.
Every year I ask her for the URL.
I like when you get it. For people listening, you'll probably notice because of the volume, but when Molly gets really excited, she grabs like the pop filter on the microphone and like pulls it in to like emphasize the point. It's awesome.
I totally do that.
I love it. I love enthusiasm. So, Stratajoy.com. Is it /reclamation if they want to check out the program?
/reclamation. Absolutely. That's where
Cool.
I'm going to spend the next 10 months. Yeah.
Amazing. So you're super great. Thank you. Thank you also for being receptive to I'm in the process of really detoxing the platform from, privilege, from insensitive terms. And it's uncomfortable. Even, you're a close friend of mine to be like, hey girl, I don't say that thing that you just said anymore. So thanks for also rolling with that and being receptive. And again, truth telling, this is what we do here.
That's how we learn.
That's how we learn. Okay. I love you dearly. Everyone listening, share it. Find Molly. She's on Instagram, Stratajoy, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
You were saying something about that tall poppy syndrome. What is that, if anyone listening doesn't know?
So it's really, it's part of a vernacular in Australian society, and I think the United Kingdom, it's really that experience of being too tall, too much, too beautiful, too brilliant, and you need to get cut down to size. Sugar, you need to get cut down to size. And it's very visceral, and it's and I have days of things that I want to say about that because it is so extremely painful to experience it. And I think even more painful is that unconsciously we've contributed to it. So I think about this in the context of, I talk about we canonize people and then we dehumanize people, right? Ooh. So we do this kind of bell curve of, putting people up on a pedestal. And then when they start to zig when we want them to zag, we cut them down, we demonize them. And again, it's pretty unconscious. And I think it's I can feel it in my chest as I say, I think this is one of the biggest reasons people are afraid of success, because they have, ancient recollections of having this happen to them, and they've seen where they've participated in it too.